I'm excited to introduce the next speaker, our new key partner from the Space Systems Command Innovation and Prototyping Delta, Colonel Roth. Leads a combined team of over 900 military, government, civilians, and contractors at 3 geographically separated units and manages $1.05 billion portfolio to rapidly transition and deliver war-winning space concepts, technologies, capabilities to the United States Space Force and mission partners across national security space community. And this is why so many of our companies are always wanting introductions to you, sir. So the Delta also manages the space test program. And with that, I'll let him talk about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey. I appreciate it. Really excited to be here. This is my first time, even though it's a local conference. I'm usually on the road and don't get to attend. And so excited to see the list of speakers, the agenda topics, and then more importantly, meet with our industrial base and kind of share with you the cool and exciting things we're doing across the Space Force. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my organization. So I run the Innovation and Prototyping Acquisition Delta. What does that, that's kind of a mouthful, but we are an organization under Space Systems Command designed to help transition technology across the Valley of Death. Here in New Mexico, we have awesome partners with Space Rapid Capabilities Office, Air Force Research Lab, and Space Systems Command, and soon to be STARCOM, which is moving down one of their deltas here to New Mexico as well. So you're in a really good place for exciting research, development, S&T, and how we turn that into operational capability to help our warfighters. So next slide. We talk about our focus as an organization in the Space Force. Hopefully most of you read the Wall Street Journal article that General Saltzman put out and had an interview on. We are a space warfighting domain. It's plain and simple. We were created to get after the threat that China and a nefarious Russia is playing on orbit. And it's pretty severe stakes. I know at some of our conferences, we have intel briefings at the unclassified level and showing you all the scary things that are going on up there. If we don't act now and get capabilities to protect our capabilities on orbit, both military and civilian capabilities and commercial, we are in a significant bind that, our whole goal is to deter conflict in space. It's plain and simple that way. And it's getting in that era of great power competition. The Secretary of the Air Force published and here in February how the Air Force and the Space Force are getting after great power competition. And it's a pretty important what we do at the grassroots level with our industry partners on how we get after that. I'm going to talk about 3 different things real quick, kind of the background of great power competition, why that's important. I will talk about some of the missions we do. We do a lot of missions across my Delta, and we'll highlight a few of those successes. And then we'll roll in what you're very interested in about it, especially a lot of our commercial industry, talk about some of our available contract opportunities. Next slide. All right, so we are in an era of great power competition. If you've never read what the Secretary of the Air Force published, I would highly encourage you read through that. It really lays it out plain and simple. We are in a race. That earlier discussion about lunch was a race to the moon. We are in a race to protect and defend our assets on orbit, which also protects our joint warfighter. Anywhere our joint warfighter goes and our commercial industry goes, space is involved, and so we're here to do that. Something very innovative that we've been doing for the past couple years, a part of my organization, I'm under the PEO for Space Domain Awareness Combat Power under Colonel McLean. We've been focusing on kill chains to do all of our budgeting and planning. So we are finding the gaps that we have in our kill chains and reverse kill chains and aligning resources and budget to go after those. It also leverages, General Gutlein started this, and you'll see this a lot with our CompSo office under Colonel Nicely. But the exploit, buy, build strategy, if industry is already building it, why does the military have to build it? We could just buy that commercial service, or we could exploit. There's tons of data out there, and we have a few programs within my Delta that are exploiting really good data, and we're finding cool and interesting things that we didn't know for pennies on the dollar, and it's very valuable. So exploit what you have, buy what you can, and only build the military things that you must. We're also trying to leverage through all of our, there's a lot of innovation going in the Space Force and across the Department of Defense. We're trying to leverage that in a variety of areas, from experiments to prototypes. Big areas of emphasis is artificial intelligence, machine learning. We actually have a program we're working that we transitioned from Air Force Research Lab that's showing a lot of promise on our ops floor. We also, there's a big reorganization going on with the Space Force. As the small and the newest service, we have the ability and the agility to organize appropriately. We are organizing to go into integrated mission deltas. So an integrated mission delta, the ops, the acquisition, the support, contracting, finance, all in one organization in a specific capability area. So General Saltzman and the force is reorganizing. So you'll see new deltas pop up in these mission areas. And I think it's a great way to work. It gets the ops and acquisition community closer together. It helps leverage speed and innovation faster. And I saw this in my last job with Air Force Research Lab, but out on Maui, we did an integrated squadron. This is at the squadron level, so a smaller unit, but ops and acquisition and S&T all combined together, and it's providing us very good benefits of having that integration. We are also moving my #1 program in the Delta, and we've got 59 different programs, but the most important one is our cloud-based ground system. It's a project called Project Nebula. It feeds into Space Rapid Capabilities Office, R2C2. Really important to get our infrastructure into the cloud. We can exploit, transmit data. We can fly different missions from a lot of different locations if we're in the cloud. Pretty powerful. I'll give you one example of that. Some of that innovation that's coming across is there's a satellite we did, a partnership with Air Force Research Lab called Ascent. And we were able to command that satellite. It deployed off one of our rings that I'll talk about. We are able to command that satellite from any JWICS terminal in the world. So pretty powerful to be able to go out and leverage the cloud to help get resiliency, but also scale all of our current capabilities. The last one is we do a lot of smaller experiments. Many of them don't work. Many of them have problems and they don't make it, but we want to fail fast, learn from those experiments and prototypes, and then really test it and ring it out in that operational environment on orbit. So really get it up to that TRL level 6 and 7, and then see how we can infuse it into a program of record. Next slide. All right, so how many people in the room even know what an LDPE is or a rooster is? Oh, not a lot. Oh, cool. So let me tell you, this is a really big success story. It was born out of Air Force Research Lab, and it took a payload adapter ring on a launch vehicle that attaches to a satellite to the rocket. And usually they just burn up in the atmosphere or they're left on orbit, but actually turn that into a fully functioning satellite. That gave us the ability of our medium and heavyweight launch vehicles to take advantage of the extra throw weight or mass that those launch vehicles have and get satellites. Cool thing about it is that payload adapter ring you see in the top thing, that's an LDPE, so an ESPA D partnered with Northrop Grumman. But all of those ports around it, we can swap payloads on those rings and put some really cool experiments and prototypes on orbit very quickly and at a very reasonable cost. So really game changing. We've launched 3 of those rings Actually, 4 of those rings recently have been operating on orbit, and we are changing the name and the branding, because if you know the nested acronym of LDPE, which is kind of complex, I encourage you to look it up, but it talks about EELV and others, but Rooster, Rapid On-Orbit Space Technology Evaluation Ring. So we launch and operate cool stuff on orbit that helps the Space Force. We had quite a few successes I'll get with as we go through, but just an amazing platform. And the cool thing about the platform, it's not the satellite. It's actually the interface. The payload interface that you use, if everybody is using the same standard interface, we can build them like Legos and plop different payloads on as long as you comply with the ICD that they have. So that's really the game-changing, innovative feature of these satellites. Next slide. All right. So part of the innovation and prototyping acquisition Delta, we have the longest running space program in the Department of Defense. We've been launching satellites since 1967 under the Space Test Program, very successful. A lot of the GPS capabilities, the OPIR, et cetera, started out as experiments from the labs across the Department of Defense and get launched on orbit. So 58 years, 312 missions. I'm not sure, I want to verify the accuracy of that number there, but no, it's actually the number right now, so we're going to be launching some more, so it'll change. But 666 experiments. That's a lot of stuff we launched on orbit. And just recently, we launched on the Transporter 10 mission. We launched the ISS, 2 different payloads. One is a materials experiment to test different focal planes and materials and how they age on orbit. And then we also launched a fairly large payload, the H9 payload module, onto the ISS. So pretty spectacular history with STP, and it's still going strong. And that's despite the meager budget. So we are at a relatively stable, almost a flat budget, but we are launching more things because industry, the cost of launch is going down. And so we are innovating and taking advantage of that. And our goal is to get as many experiments on orbit as possible. Next slide. All right. So this picture is pretty interesting. So, and it kind of tells you something just by looking at it. I'll give you a fun fact that I learned as I took over this job. We have launched more experiments to the International Space Station than NASA has, which is pretty powerful. So through the Space Test Program, all our mission partners, Navy Research Lab, Air Force, Army, we have launched more experiments on the ISS. This is a current picture of all of our payloads on the ISS that are currently hosted. We have a payload ops center at Johnson Space Center down in Houston that operates all those payloads, and it really burns down the risk and it tests capabilities in that operational environment. NASA has been an extremely great partner and essentially helps us get experiments on orbit. You can also see, it's not listed here, I don't see it on there, but we also developed technology, this is Air Force Research Lab, called the Rollout Solar Array. Pretty powerful technology, lightweight, you can roll up a whole solar array and then extend it when needed. And we launched that to the International Space Station. It has been very successful and helpful, and the performance very well, very good performance. And it has transitioned to industry. So a lot of industry partners are taking that technology and are going to be using it in the future. So pretty awesome capabilities and a national asset. The ISS is supposed to sunset in 2030. What happens when we no longer have the ISS up there to launch all of our experimentation? So think about those things at a national level, what we're trying to do. I know there's a lot of initiatives for commercial space stations, but really important national asset that's burned down risk for lots of programs. Next slide. All right, This is an eye chart, lots of stuff. I think the slides will be available. So if you wanted to go through here, just amazing level of really, we've been really busy. Since 2022, we launched 11 satellites in a 13-month period with 49 different payloads for 21 different mission partners in a 13-month span. That included 4 actually rings that we launched and operated on orbit, and it's been busy. This year, that was the launch in 2022. Most of the work is done once it's on orbit, and you're actually doing the experimentation and the training on orbit. And so we just come to the end in 2023 of our end of missions for a lot of these assets, and we are in the process of transitioning those to STARCOM. So Space Training and Readiness Command, they will become fixtures of the on-orbit test range. So just like we have an Edwards Air Force Base or Mojave, China Lake, White Sands, we will have a space range on orbit, and it will have capabilities, and we will get a really good benefit because those assets still have a lot of gas and a lot of capability, and we will leverage those for the on-orbit range for the Space Force. We have a lot of missions coming up, and 2024, our biggest mission, it's a Vanguard mission with Air Force Research Lab, and it's for the next generation GPS satellite called NTS-3. It is based on ring technology, the Northrop Grumman ESPA-STAR, but it's built by the payloads, and the prime on that is L3 Harris. And we're going to be launching that at GEO here in the fall, if everything goes well with Vulcan. So that's a crucial capability, and we'll test it out on orbit and then see if future GPS capability, if that regime and that technology really works, then I would expect more investments in there. Next slide. All right. So the Space Enterprise Consortium, this is a part of my organization as well. This is how we go fast. So if you're not a member of the consortium, this is Congress gave us other transaction authority, so OT authority, to go fast for prototypes. If you're not a member, highly encourage you to become a member, especially if you're small. It helps you build a network of folks that may buy your products or services. And it's been growing ever since it was established. It grew so fast that we ran out of the contracts. The first contract pretty quickly, I think it was about 2 years. And then we've got a pretty sizable contract now, $12 billion ceiling, 10-year period of performance. This is with NSTXL. So I know we do a lot of events, so I encourage you to go out there. If you have any questions, some of the solicitations that are going out here coming up, probably the most important one that you would be interested in is the, it's called, GPS Lite, but they just renamed it Resilient GPS, you got it. So keep an eye out. That is getting ready to get released here, maybe by within the week or two. So keep an eye on the consortium. Next slide. All right, we do have for STP, this has actually taken us a while to do. Our biggest limiting factor typically is not the technology, it's our capacity and throughput of our contract. So getting everything lined up and the ability to execute a contract is a challenge, and we have to prioritize those. But we are just released the RFP for Step 2.0. This is for the space test program. The whole goal of this, and I can't talk a lot about the details because the RFP has been released. So our goal is to buy buy satellite buses that are available to use on orbit. We don't want to develop them or spend a lot of NRE. Buy satellites off an IDIQ contract and encourage you guys to compete, and then give us options when not only STP and my Delta, but the rest of the Space Force, if you're working with experiments, give us the ability to go quickly and already have a fully qualified bus that we can use either at LEO or at GEO. So the RFP is out there. Submissions are due by 12 July. So make sure, and then if there's instructions there, if you have any questions for it. Next slide. All right, this is from a different part of my organization. So it's part of the Space Domain Awareness Combat Power and our BMC3 office. But we do have a FreeSol BAA contracting opportunity. So if you have great ideas and want to submit them, they take unsolicited white papers and proposals, and we can do that for classified, unclassified, and everything in between. Really important capability. So FreeSol BAA, run by my counterpart, Colonel Neil Roach and his team under Colonel McLean and Ms. Pallone. All right, next slide. Okay, so those are some of the wave top levels of things we're doing within our organization and Space Systems Command. Really excited. We're partnering with Assured Access to Space, the SML portfolio, so space maneuver and logistics. And we are pushing hard to do on-orbit refueling in a variety of manners. Right now, we have two areas we're focusing on is the Northrop Grumman, the ARM and PRM solution, and then also Orbit Fab's RAFTI. So we want to get those on orbit, test them out in that operational environment, hedge our bets because we don't know which one will work and which one will work better than the other. And it's always better to have more than one and test them out, and so we can hedge our bets, but really want to get that on-orbit refueling infrastructure started. And we have seen that the market, the government is going to have to prime the pump and start that market because there is not right now commercial. We don't see a commercial market just from the data and information we know, but I know if we build it and test it and it actually works well, we will invest a lot in it. So it gives us the ability to maneuver. And as we talked earlier, that environment, it is a warfighting environment. The ability to maneuver is a huge distinct advantage for our forces. So if we can leverage that going forward, on-orbit refueling, very important capability. All right, I have no idea how much time we have, but I'm open to lots of questions. And yeah.
The Space Futures Command Task Force, if you could just tell us a little bit about that. I know it's standing up on 1 August, right?
Yeah, so real quick, I'm part of SSE's representation on Space Systems Command representation on the Space Futures Command, the newest field command for the Space Force. It is standing up. The provisional stand-up is in August, and by the end of the year, we'll have a general officer running the organization, and we'll be moving units and capabilities over to that. The goals of that is to help ensure we do the analytics and the force design on the future objective force that the Space Force is trying to get after, that we do the requisite modeling and sim, wargaming to prove this out. The Space Warfighting, the SWAC, Space Warfighting Analysis Center, will be a cornerstone, one of 3 pillars of Space Futures Command. You also have a contingent. This is the Advanced Technology and Concepts Group, kind of born out of LA. It'll be run by Colonel Pete Mastro. So think of new ideas and concepts and how do we pool and develop roadmaps for those concepts. And then we'll have, it's Del 10, but there's still some discussion, but the wargaming Delta. So there's going to be a really important wargaming piece to this that transitions into Space Futures Command. The things that you would be interested that are kind of off limits is the Air Force Research Lab. So that'll stay one lab supporting 2 services, so that won't be impacted. But Space Futures Command is going to be an integral part of all that S&T architecture to develop capabilities and help it transition out of the lab. So great question.
Have a question. Just
Good
one. Sir, are you gonna stick around? Are you gonna go
Yeah.
to the dinner after?
I won't be able to make the dinner, but I will stick around for a little bit. There's a few companies I wanted to talk with, but definitely encourage, if you cannot talk to me tonight, but where's Tom? There he is, Tom Smith. So he is my guardian. He is my front door for me. but he came from the front door team. And so he does a lot of my industry and business engagements and works through those a lot. So do not hesitate to reach out to us. And I know most of you have our cards, but if you don't have my card, reach out through the front door. So just send them an email. There's a website, just Google SSE front door. You'll be able to find it, and then they'll be able to get you to the right person. So, all right.
As a fan of the front door, also a big fan of what you guys are doing with the integrated deltas. So I'm Troy from KMI. We're liking to move fast. We're going to ISS. We're doing great stuff with AFRL and others. How quickly are we going to be seeing more of these integrated deltas between acquisitions and the other pieces? Because we're loving it. It's actually moving at the speed we need to.
Yeah, you'll see the rollout plan that basically they did two experimental versions of integrated mission deltas, one for electronic warfare and the other one for GPS. From that, they're going to expand, and most mission areas will become a part of that process. They have a robust process where the leadership decides which ones will go next. Expect over the course of probably the summer for more announcements on which units will be standing up for that. Also, it works really well, and you also have to watch out those. Sometimes that vertical integration in a mission area, you got to also think about where do you do that horizontal integration across the enterprise. So you got to be very careful, but I will say very similar to other organizations out there. So the National Reconnaissance Office was horizontally integrated, the towers for their mission areas, SIGINT, IMINT, COM, and that worked very well for a very long time. But they have layers where there's enterprise approaches to like ground systems and other infrastructure that all those organizations think. So pretty exciting time and change of paradigm, and really excited that we're fusing ops, acquisition, and S&T together. So yeah, you're welcome. All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, we're always a little behind. Here's a present. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Don't fall off.